Hey guys, Ralph and Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe with both episode 9 and I say 10 because I'm doing one and doing the other right after. So both are sort of in my mind. And so I say both. They're both going up, relatively speaking. So episode 9, Space, first airs November 12th, 93. We're into the November, almost Thanksgiving season of this inaugural season of the X-Files. And we have a, so-called monster of the week, but I think it does work to help lay down some of the mythology indirectly, we'll say. Indirectly. It is a bit of a monster of the week, and it is a unique episode in the sense that it does bring back some memories for me. Space has to do with the shuttle, the space shuttle. Remember that program? I can't remember the last time I even heard somebody mention a space shuttle. It's been having, NASA's been having some problems, and the girl played by Michelle Jenuru, I think that's how you say it, Susanna Thompson, seems to suspect or fears sabotage. Somebody apparently has something, a grievance, or perhaps there is something is attempting to be a stumbling block to this deployment that the shuttle mission is, the show is gearing towards. And it's interesting though, because they do poke and prod a little bit, reminding us of the Challenger explosion, January 28th, 1986. I did see that in the real. I was 16. I was in, gee whiz, I was 10th, was it 10th or 11th grade? But anyways, I just remember I was on a bathroom pass, and I was walking by the lab, and one of my my chemistry teacher saw me and said, "Rob, you got to get in here. The shuttle's about to go off." And so I kind of was ushered into the room and was allowed to stand there with other teachers as we all sort of watched the shuttle go up and then slowly explode. Absolutely terrible tragedy in amongst those lost, of course, a teacher, right? And so, it was sort of eerie for me to stand there as a kid, 16-year-old kid, seeing this in the real happen, and just seeing some of them begin to sob almost uncontrollably, if I remember right. And that was weird. That might be one of the earliest tragedies that I remember on that big of a stage happening. So this episode's weird because they use a ton of stock footage from both the Discovery, the Columbia, and the Challenger, strewn across. Sort of reminded me in a weird way of Alien 2 on Earth, that Italian cheesy B sci-fi end of the world apocalyptic film. A lot of stock footage, NASA stock footage, I think, a lot, just Air Force stock footage, probably, a lot of stuff in there. And so this one incorporates a lot of stock footage, but having to build mission control still, it was supposed to be what they called a bottle episode. It's a contained in the sense of trying to save costs, but mission control alone exceeded budget costs and made this episode the most expensive of season 1. And it's really, a lot of it is just the construction of mission control. So using all the stock footage didn't save it from that. Ed Laterre, if that's how you say his name, plays Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Aurelius Belt. He is the famed astronaut who Mulder was his childhood hero. And so it is interesting that when Mulder and Scully have their first audience with him. Mulder is just like a little kid, man, stars in his eyes, and of course Scully has to be the pit bull and go after him in terms of questioning, because they had been given information by someone inside, the Michelle girl played by Suzanne Thompson, whose fiance is going on the next mission, and so she has a little vested interest in what is happening here. I'll say this episode's weird because it has some really unique, interesting moments, but a lot of the time, at least for me personally, a lot of the time, Mulder and Scully, they always seem to be in most of these scenes, and when it's in mission control, I don't know. It's weird. They just seem out of place. Like, in real life, they probably wouldn't be there. They probably wouldn't be allowed to be in some of the places they are in, right? And so it just sort of has a weird vibe to it. Not a bad, just a little bit of an awkward maybe. It's weird. Really weird. This was written by Chris Carter. It was directed by William A. Graham. He'll be known for 3 episodes and all. He will do EBE, and if I remember right, EBE introduces the Lone Gunman. And if I remember right, which is, I can't remember what episode number that is, but in season 5, he also gives us episode 15, Travelers. So that's interesting. Mostly known for a lot of TV stuff. But Ed Leterre, who plays our Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Aurelius Speld, I just had to say that name again. If you remember, he's in Cujo, which is interesting, in the 76th version of King Kong. And the remakes, The Town That Dreaded Sundown in 14. So this is first episode that incorporates... oh no, that's the next one. I'm sorry. I was going to say Trust No One, but that's number 10. Told you, I got them both on my mind right now. And so it is an interesting episode, Space. And so really sort of at the heart of this is our Lieutenant Colonel has been possessed by some sort of extraterrestrial spirit who ultimately, I'm just lay it out there, man. This is 93. It's a TV episode. And so this thing has something against the deployment, or maybe just the continuing pushing into space, and so perhaps this extraterrestrial entity or spirit is just making mischief, or really does have an agenda. It's never really made clear to us one way or the other, but the Lieutenant Colonel will make a self-sacrificing move towards the end. And some of the special effects have been criticized in terms of the metamorphosis in his face, the alien, the face. It's not bad though. It's kind of eerie, actually. It's a little bit creepy, actually, if you ask me. And so it does, it does bring into, sort of reminds you, not really, but I mean, it sort of reminds you of Life Force, as another movie that uses the shuttle thing, to interesting effect. And so, yeah, Ed Leterre, he really does well anchoring this, and just the dichotomy between him and Mulder is pretty cool. And that becomes a stumbling block of sorts for Scully to work around. I think at one point she says to him, are you going to get his autograph? And so it does, so it's interesting like that, right? It is interesting. And ultimately, things are ultimately resolved at the end to a degree. And the mission is ultimately successful. There is one moment in there which is interesting, where Mulder does finally corner the Lieutenant Colonel and pin him down on, because he lies in a press conference about not admitting to there being any sort of issues with the mission or with the shuttle, any danger to the crew, no word of thought of sabotage. And he argues to Mulder that, in the old days, astronauts made the front page of the paper whenever they did something well. But even today, as they do something well, it's put on the back page of the paper. Unless, of course, it's something bad, then it's the front page. And so he is under a tremendous amount of pressure to push the mission to its logical end, really for the sake of the NASA program in the end. And it's something that Mulder does ultimately accept and to a point and agree that he can see it. And it's an interesting moment between the two. It's interesting. So the episode has some really interesting things going on, and the use of stock footage is really interesting. Even though it's 3 different shuttles, the continuity is pretty well done. It's pretty smooth. I think there's moments where you can see, even though it's maybe semi blurred, you can see, I think, the name a few times, and you really, if you're looking hard, you can tell it's different footage of a different shuttle. But it's done well. I mean, it's done really well. It's an enjoyable episode. Ed Lothair really anchors it and does well with it, and it's a good Monster of the Week episode, but one that still deals with this extraterrestrial sort of idea. So it's pretty cool, man. Space, episode 9. I'm gonna catch my breath and roll right on into episode 10 momentarily here. As always, we end these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream. We might be useful to you.